my God. Fritzi Horstman. Welcome to Roll with the Punches. I'm going to leave that all in. I'm going to leave that because this has happened in probably 3 recent podcasts where I can't pronounce the name, but welcome.
Awesome. Thank you, Tiffany.
Would you like to tell the world how to pronounce your name properly?
Sure. It's Fritzi Horstman.
So easy, isn't it? Hey, I'm so overwhelmingly excited to have you on and to speak to you. So thank you. Thank you for your time and for coming on today.
Absolutely. I'm glad to be here. Glad to be here with your enthusiasm and your joy.
Where in the world are you?
I live in Los Angeles.
Amazing. Is it summer or winter over there at the moment?
It's summer and it's fire season, but we get overcast mornings, so it's 72 degrees usually. So it's been pretty great for us. But we have a drought and I'm very worried about the water, very worried about, our arid world over here.
Crazy stuff going on. I found you when I was recently watching The Wisdom of Trauma. I talk a lot about, look how excited I look. I'm like, who gets this excited talking about trauma? So weird. Anyway, I do a lot, hands up. I do a lot of episodes speaking to people who have experienced traumas of different types. I do a lot of episodes with therapists, different types of therapists and experts in the space. And obviously when The Wisdom of Trauma came out, that was just circulating around my news feeds and everything. So I watched that. Just amazing, just a brilliant film. And you popped up and I thought, I might reach out to, because you're doing some amazing stuff. And I know that you have also a history of, you're a Grammy Award-winning producer yourself for some films. So, wow. Go you and go me for getting you on. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Fritzi, and what you do and what you have done.
Well, for most of my life, I was a filmmaker. I worked in the film industry, mostly in post-production. I directed a couple of films. One was called Joyce to the World, which was about James Joyce and the crazy James Joyce fans, which is why I know about Melbourne and why I know how great of a city it is, because I interacted with people who they celebrate Bloomsday in Melbourne. And so I made that film because I was always wondered who could actually get through Ulysses. And there were people, not only did they read it, but they reenacted it. And I made that documentary and made a feature film called start again. I made a feature film called Take a Number about 3 ex-boyfriends showing up the same day to visit a woman. And then I made Step Inside the Circle, which is part of the film you saw in Wisdom of Trauma, which is about the trauma of people living in prison. And I hope everyone who's listening to this podcast goes to our website, sees Step Inside the Circle, and then when they see it, they share it with 10 of their favorite friends. That's my first ask anyway.
I love it. Well, I'll put it in the show notes, but what is the website?
It's compassionprisonproject.org. And but the Grammy that we won was for a film called The Defiant Ones, and it's about Dr. Dre and Jimmy Iovine. And it's this kind of incredible piece of art. I wouldn't call it a film. It's 4 episodes of art, just some of the most incredible talent on screen and off screen. And I didn't really have much to do with the creative side. I got it done, which that in itself was a creative achievement, but pulling the film away from those filmmakers was an achievement in itself. But there were 2 other producers on the show as well. So we all did our part. And we got a Grammy for it, it was just like one of those magical moments in someone's life. You're like, oh, I'm getting a Grammy.
That's amazing. It's amazing. So when did your interest go from producing films towards all of this, you know, the Compassion Prison Project and all of this stuff that you now focus on?
Well, what happened was it's a sequence of events. I started reading this book. I read this book called The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk.
Yeah.
And I literally, it was my whole life changed that day because I realized my behavior, the way I responded to the world was not who I was. It was like, okay, I'm traumatized. This is what happens when a person is traumatized. They behave this way. Their brain, it's all down to brain science. And I was like, okay. And then a month later, I walked into Kern Valley State Prison as a volunteer. Someone said, yeah, I did it. Go. It was great.
Wow.
And so my life changed twice in a month, basically. I read that book and then I walked into prison, and I swear my life was never going to be the same because of what I saw there. What I saw were 100 incarcerated men, highly traumatized, but highly wonderful. Like there was no question to me that what we're doing is obscene. And I, every morning recently I've been waking up, it's like, why are we punishing people who've already been punished? Why are we killing people who killed? Why are we doing the same things that they did to get back at them? And why aren't we looking at them as the book by Bruce Perry and Oprah, what happened to you instead of what's wrong with you?
So I just want to say about that, I had a few episodes ago, episode 168, I had a doctor by the name of Dr. Bill Saunders, who has written a book at the same time, just released it, called What Happened? Same theory, same story. That episode with us turned into a therapy session with me. So it was quite a vulnerable session, and I've just started actually reading his book now. Amazing. So I know I feel exactly what you're saying here.
Yeah, and he was on our podcast too, which I highly recommend. And Bessel van der Kolk, and Peter Levine, and Stephen Porges, and Gabor Mate. I know. And today I just interviewed Joe Dispenza. Not to plug my podcast, but
all of the people that are on the top of my hit list. That is amazing.
Yeah,
what an opportunity.
It's been a wild ride. Oh, the dog's barking at something. Probably the mailman. So maybe we should wait for a moment till he calms down. Or it could be UPS.
That's what
you
happens.
Edit this, right?
Yeah, I do. I've got something sitting outside in my courtyard for someone to pick up, and when someone does that, my dog will do the same thing. So
I think he's done now. Okay.
All right.
So what were we saying?
All of the amazing people on your podcast.
I know. I think, I don't know why, but when Gabor Mate said yes, which was the first, that's how this year started, was Gabor Mate's podcast.
Wow.
When he said yes, it was just like, what's happening? And then it just kept happening. I would just say, oh, well, let's ask them if they'll do it. And they said yes. And I've gotten most of the top on my list. And I'm going to interview Donna Jackson Nakazawa next. I don't know if you know her. She wrote a book called Childhood Disrupted and The Angel and the Assassin.
Oh.
And she talks about the microglia or is it microglia? I don't know. But she talks about, that's like our autoimmune system in our brains. And when you're a child and you're being abused, if you don't use it, it'll attack this part of your brain.
Wow.
Yeah, it's the same, the same things. If you don't use it, you lose it. And anyway, it just really, it's another evidence about how devastating trauma is. And
it's really interesting how quickly you can, I'm a handful of pages into Bill's book, and obviously I've already had the conversation and understand what it's all about, but a few pages in and you just go, he even talks about the hoaxes that the whole industry is kind of under, and then he picks apart how, that there's no biological markers for trauma, yet we we give these pharmaceuticals which change the biology of our brain when there's no biological markers in it. And you just go, wow, like it just makes sense to me.
Yeah. And just what we're doing to people in prison, but to our society, the homeless people or the unhoused people, that's all trauma, and you can walk through the streets anywhere and just, you can see I see trauma now. That's what I see. I see someone smoking on the corner and there's trauma. My parents were both heavy smokers, and what you get for that moment that you inhale, Dr. Vince Folletti, he's another person I interviewed. He told me about this. It's like you get a just 1 minute moment of relief. So you're a whole cigarette is just a bunch of relief that you're getting. So you're not feeling the stress and the pain that's in your body. So you see a smoker, and I used to hate smokers because my family smoked, and now I just see, I feel my own sadness and feel their sadness. So, things have changed for me. I'm not as angry. I'm not as angry once I become aware that trauma is, destroying our society.
Far out. What changed? What have you? Tell me more about the prison. Tell me more about what. Obviously, that immediately changed you. You walked in there and you immediately changed. But how did you then use that? What did you do?
So I walked in there. I spent 8 hours there with this program. It's called Hustle 2.0. I cried all day long. I mean, I would hear stories of people being in solitary confinement for 10, 20, 30 years. People just growing up in extreme poverty, just the things that we're doing and the things that we've done. Mothers who, want to flush their kids down the toilet, as the guy said in the thing. But that day, a man's father tried to drown him. So we're dealing with people that weren't wanted and weren't seen ever. And so I started going to prison and saying, you know what, I see you, and I see that you need to be seen. And how can I amplify that? How can we make sure you're valuable? Because here's the thing. If we want to change the world, it starts with us. It starts with what we're doing for ourselves, to our families, to our communities. But if we want to change the world, it all has to change. We can't leave out pieces. We can't leave out the prisons. We can't leave out the foster kids. We can't leave out the homeless. We can't leave out the war vets who are marginalized. It all has to change, and it all has to be all encompassing. If we really want to save this planet, if we want to save our species and all these other species we're destroying. Someone said, Mother Earth is being destroyed by the abused, destroyed, angry man. And angry white man, actually. And so it's to think about that, because most of the destruction that we're seeing is people that are just saying, F it, I don't care. I want to make money. I'm going to do this. But there's no holistic approach to it. It's like, well, wait a second. We're just destroying trees. We don't even know what we're doing. There's the lives of trees. Trees have like a whole ecosystem that we don't even know about. They talk to each other. I mean, we just are so ignorant. And so, but you see, that's what trauma does. It dissociates you, right? And these men and women are doing it too. They've been abused. And so we're not in contact with the planet, with each other, with ourselves. And so violence seems to be the thing to do when you're traumatized. That's the go-to. Most of one guy wrote in one of the essays I had them write in prison, he said, I thought violence was normal. I thought that's what you did. I thought you beat your wife, you beat your mother. I thought that's what you did. And I'm like, no, that's not what we do. But that's a program, that's learned behavior.
Yeah.
But just like that's learned behavior, we can learn new things. We can learn grace and love and compassion and community and we can build, we can create, or we can destroy. You know, the opposite of creation is destruction. So, I mean, in every minute we can choose that, but that's our choice. And violence, when we're choosing violence, we're destroying. And even if it's a little thing, it's a microaggression, is destroys, but a micro compassion builds and expands and creates and opens and rises and flourishes. And I know that's what everybody wants.
I know you make a really good point. You make a really good point as you were talking before. You know, trauma can be violence and destruction, but trauma can also be success and destruction. You take someone that is just one-eyed, single focus. A question that I asked a lot when I first began this podcast, I kept asking it to different people, and I never felt like I was really getting the answer I wanted, but I was like, doesn't any level of success in any area of anyone's life signify, doesn't it come from a place of adversity? Doesn't it come from a place of fear, lack, and like if being the fastest human on the planet in a race and proving that is the most important thing, well, isn't there a massive hole somewhere that is being filled? If I need to make all the money in the world, when we went into this pandemic, and I said to you before that I just started this podcast, it was amazing. I'd come to several times a fairly new place of self-awareness, and this was the first time where I went into, you know, adversity is my friend mode. Adversity, I always work well in it. It's always a great place. But as I built this podcast and found all this success happening, I was sitting outside of myself and I was watching going, is it? Is it? Is it? Are you healing or are you repeating the old pattern? Is this a coping mechanism or is this real? Is this, have you moved on, or are you repeating a new cycle and wearing a mask that pretends that you are, these were the questions that I would sit back and watch. And in the moment, it's hard to answer that. I didn't know the answer. I was just waiting to wake up one day and crash and go, oh, that was all just a facade again.
Well, but the fact that you're questioning is so important, because that's awareness. And I think that's really the key to the whole game that we're playing. I think we're all in this, if it's some weird virtual reality, but you level up every time you have awareness. I think awareness is the thing that helps you level up to the next piece. Then you get more information as you start leveling up. Oh, that's my behavior. Oh, wait, that's not who I am anymore. Mm. Like my son, I'll talk about this on every podcast if I have to. My son and I, when we're in the kitchen, it's like this zone of fear and trauma. It's a trauma zone for both of us. Because when I was a little girl growing up, when my mother was in the kitchen, it was a place where we were in a really small kitchen. She would have knives. She would tell me I'm not doing it right. She would really yell at me. So I always associated the kitchen with a place where I'm going to get triggered or injured. Mm. So whenever I was in the kitchen with my son, he would drop things and I'd scream at him. But then one day he broke a bowl and I didn't scream. He freaked out though, because he thought, this is it. She's gonna lose her stuff. But I didn't. And so I watched him go through it all. And now we can start building there. Because, I traumatized my son. I know I did. And it's not something I'm proud of, but it's something I'm aware of. And it's something I've forgiven myself, because I didn't know what I was doing. And now I know what I'm doing. But now, so I could take care of him instead of having my outburst, and watch him, go through, he went through fight, flight, and freeze all in like 20 seconds. He wanted to fight. He wanted to get out of there. And then eventually he froze. And so that's awareness though. And we leveled up that day. We both leveled up, because he knew that I'm starting to get my act together. I'm not going to be as insane as I've been, out of my mind. And that thing, I'm holding up a fist for the people in the podcast, there's that thing, this is your brain, and then when you flip a lid, so here's your amygdala, this is the part in, so I've flipped my hand, and now it's like I'm holding the number 4 sign. So I flip my lid, but now my lid's back on, and I can start really watching my behavior and seeing when I start getting triggered. And so awareness is like what you're doing with yourself is really important, and really a sign of your own growth.
Yeah. And it's such it's an ongoing and almost a lifelong thing, I reckon. You're like, I talk about this a lot, but I told the story how at 29 years old, stepped into the boxing ring for a kind of fun, 12-week challenge. And, over the next couple of fell in love with the sport, got drawn into it, realised the pull of being drawn into it was coming from somewhere that sparked my curiosity. Realised for 29 years I was wearing a mask, and then realised there was trauma, and then looked at that trauma and went, oh, shit, kind of pushed that so far down it didn't ever exist to me. I never thought of it. And then it was like, oh, but that is real. It did happen. And then, I spent a bit of time thinking ignorance was bliss, right? Ignorance was bliss, because before I knew this, I was just confident, I was just reactive, I was just this, I was that, I was independent, I'd go, I'd ignore stuff. Reality was I had walls up, I wouldn't get vulnerable, I was scared of connection, I was always ready for abandonment, I didn't trust myself, I didn't trust others, like all this stuff. Once you shine a light on it, then I would kind of crack the shits at self-awareness, the idea of self-awareness in inverted commas. I remember asking Craig Harper, one of my mentors, I kept saying, like, fucking what now? Like, self-awareness, what now? Like, what do I do with it, right? Because now I'm just stuck, and it almost pulls you under, almost pulls you back and goes, oh, now we've got all this reason, and you're almost in danger of getting pulled into the I'm broken category.
Yeah, I don't know. Because I mean, we're all broken and we're all whole, right? So I'm not gonna buy that. We can go to all our old patterns, of course, but I think when you open the door to awareness, it's a hard one to close, because, well, I mean, you can always go back to start drinking and do whatever you want. I mean, I just gave up coffee, which is a huge thing for me, because it was something I used to keep myself hypervigilant. So I get, control was a big thing for me. And so giving up coffee was like giving up that person who would just keep me going. And, I'm a workaholic. I'm a workaholic. I'm working on not being a workaholic as well. That's why I took a walk, but it was late for you.
I hear you. I work too much as well.
But it's an addiction, and it's a way to not feel, and another way to shut down, because it's scary to feel, when your parents are so out of their minds. What have you got? Were you traumatized as a child? Is that where your trauma comes from?
Well, yeah, and I had sexual abuse for quite a few years as a child. And I'm just starting now on, after Bill's episode, starting on a new style of some therapy to, and I've worked on it over the years. But, there's always that next level of, and I've always pushed back on the somatic style of therapy. I always pushed back on the anything kind of physical, really trying to connect. I was like, I do boxing. I'm not hitting, like, I'm going to say, I'm not hitting your pillow. I'm not hitting stuff in front of you. I'll talk. I'm very analytical, very type A mind. So I literally went to my first therapist and was like, all right, this has happened. I've Googled it. This has happened. I feel like I have some, issues with relationships and vulnerability and getting close to people. There you go. Like, do what you experts do. I've already done all the hard work I've told you. So you just fix me. And it was very difficult, because obviously that's not I didn't want to get into the emotions and the feeling and attach to that. And, it takes quite a few years, and I'm still just opening new levels of doors to that now.
I'm with you. I was like, somatics is the last thing. I was like, I don't want to do somatics. And even I'm signed up for a course, and I took the first, I listen, you know, it's on video, so I'll get to see it later. But have I done it? No, I haven't sat with the pillow and breathed in and done the VU and haven't. No, I get it. That's like, it's like, yeah, I'll do everything else, but don't make me feel. Don't make me feel. It's so true. And yoga too. Yoga is really hard for me as well. But a really good thing for both of us.
Yeah. Oh, it's funny. I always said yoga's way harder than boxing. Put me in a ring where I move my limbs fast, sharp, explosive movements, disassociate from the pain so I can't feel it. Gives me a sense of power, control, honesty, and visibility amidst trauma. All of those things come together. Bam, happy place. Make me hold my arms out wide, be aware of the feelings in my body and not move and sit in it. Whew, that's hard for me.
Exactly, because you have to slow down and you have to feel.
Yeah.
And it's boring. Like that to me, that was my complaint for years, is like, I would do Ashtanga. Ashtanga is like, okay, hurry up doing this. But the key here for us is to slow down and feel the pain while we're moving through it. So I think we should both commit to it. Both to commit to some yoga. And I think even if it's just 15 minutes a day, I think we should both commit to it. And I think I'm going to really do that, because I was just talking with Joe Dispenza, and he's like, you know, if you want to change, it's not going to be easy. You have to do it. You have to do it. And why are you, but this is awareness, right? Both of us are sitting here being aware that we don't like yoga. And so it's good. It's good. So this is what we get to face now.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we owe it to not only ourselves, this is part of our growth for the planet. This is like, as we grow, it helps the world. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Do you know, another thing that's been quite prevalent for me lately is I was always someone who would just move through life onto the next thing. That did two things. It escaped any opportunity for abandonment. I had already moved on. And if someone, you know, if something moved on without my control, I would make it a positive. I would really flip it really quick, and I'd go and be driven to do so much better. And I in the beginning, I never felt that. I never understood that was actually where it was coming from. Now, when I sit in new types of relationships, business, friendships, whatever, I'm noticing the discomfort and the feelings and the stories, and they're just stories. I'll sit within something where I want to react in a certain way, or I feel differently about it. I'm like, okay, that feeling that I have, has anything changed in the outer world, or have you something internally changed and you're just not happy sitting? You're just very uncomfortable sitting in the fact that you're into something that you may lose, that may push you away, that you feel insecure, you feel insignificant, and you're staying, like, it's the staying still in it. So staying still in situations, and that's scary.
It's so scary. I'm just thinking about my marriage. It's just like how I've, you know, tried to not be vulnerable in it. And, and just that, you know, that the missed opportunities for connection, because I'm so petrified of being hurt, petrified of being abandoned. So yeah, I get that. I get it. And it's, you know, and what you've been through, yours is, you know, both of us have been abused, but yours has been, it's sexual abuse and neglect are the two worst, I think. I mean, from what I'm observing, it's just, and so to build that back up, that back up, I can see all these patterns that you've created because you were betrayed, you know, and that's, you know, and that's what trauma is. It's a betrayal. And that's what we're dealing with. This society, we've all been betrayed. And even those men that are destroying the earth, they've been betrayed. And that's why they don't care. It's the effort, it's the fuck it. Who cares? No one cares about me. Why do I care about anything else? And that's the thing, is we got to start caring. We got to see everybody. Everybody's got to be seen. And I don't know how we do that. Maybe we need, the official seeing day. Everybody goes out and sees each other or something, but it's serious. I'm serious, because this world isn't going to change until everybody's included and everybody's seen and everybody feels whole.
Yeah. How do we get people to see themselves, though? I just think of when I used to look at other people, and all there was reactive judgment because I wasn't willing to see myself for the reality. I don't know if I had the capacity to. How do we bring people into a place of having the capacity to actually see themselves first?
Well, yeah, the first part is safety, right? Safety is the most, we have to feel safe to go and explore the new parts about ourselves. Somehow you found safety. I don't know what happened. There must have been a day you're like, okay, I'm going to do this. But you're, from what I can tell in the half hour that I've met you, you're a warrior. You are. You're a spiritual warrior. You're not, even the boxing is significant, because you're like, I'm going to beat this out of me. I'm going to figure out a way to not just lie down and let my trauma be a victim of my trauma.
Yeah.
So, but we have to, I don't know what we have to do, but it's got to come from grace, and it's got to come from love. I love everybody. Honestly, I love everybody. I'm having some issues with a couple of politicians. I'm working through that. No, I am. They trigger me, there's like, and I want to say bad names about them and make fun of them, and it's like, well, no, this guy was abused. This woman is insane. Okay. Mitch McConnell, Nancy Pelosi. Those are the two I'm trying to deal with right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. But both of them are mirrors of me, because if I have something at issue with Mitch McConnell, I think for me, it would probably be something when I'm rigid, when I'm inflexible, when I don't want to hear the other sides. And with Nancy, I think it's, she's so nervous. She's just very nervous. And so that triggers, I don't feel safe around her. There's something I don't feel safe with. So I think but those two are like at the head of the helm of this, of my government. And they're running my government, and they're traumatized. They're traumatized people. Clearly they're traumatized. And
do you think it's harder? Do you think the trigger is more difficult for us when we're in a place where maybe it's something we're not fully into ourselves yet, right? So I think of where I'm quite self-aware and have made a lot of progress, and when I see that in other people now, I can recognize it, but I'm not triggered by it. But it's when I'm really triggered, I'm reactive, because I'm not willing to look at that part of myself yet.
Absolutely. And I know I know anyone who's triggering me now is my next lesson. It's like, oh, my lesson, here's my lesson. I got my lesson for the day. I'm actually going to do a worksheet on some woman that I'm having a hard time with. The Byron Katie workshop, the 4 questions. Do you know that one?
No.
Do you know it's true? Byron Katie.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yes.
The work.
Yes. Yep.
Do you know it? Do you absolutely know that it's true? How would you be without that thought? And then turn it around.
One of my friends did that with me once, and it was so powerful. Went through that Yeah.
The 4 questions. So I'm going to be doing that to get clear with that. Maybe I should do that with Mitch McConnell and Nancy Pelosi too. Donald Trump, not so much, but it's like, because all these thoughts there are gifts if we listen to them and we say, well, wait, but why is that happening? But otherwise they pass through, and then we're reacting to things that we don't even know what we're reacting to. So we're just going blind. And our bodies, when we're traumatized, our bodies are informing everything we do, basically, right? You know, go sleep with that guy, because then you'll feel better about yourself. Well, you know, if I had known that this was a thought, I probably wouldn't have done that. But I didn't. I was traumatized. I was a little traumatized girl just trying to make it through the world.
Yeah. When a few years ago, the last couple of little relationships, a few years ago, she says, I feel like I'm someone who develops awareness around things really quite quickly when I think about it. So I started seeing someone quite a few years ago now, and I saw them for 3 months, and I'd just been starting to do some work, right? So I'd started therapy, and I'd opened up, and I'd kind of shared a bit of my story with them. So I felt like this is huge. I am opening up to somebody, I'm being vulnerable, and I'm leading into getting to know this person. And at 3 months, this person had some serious issues, personality kind of disorder type issues, crazy. So, and the first sniff of that I got, it was like catch up. They lingered around for a long, long time in the background, and then to the point where I had to get an intervention order. Then I started boxing. So I threw myself, looking back, it's like I went from that, just threw myself into boxing and just didn't look anywhere else. 3 years later, I go to my housemate. We probably should date again. Look, it's actually been 3 years. I should probably, So we go to a speed dating thing. I meet a guy, and we go for dinner 3 times. I open up and tell him about this experience I had. So I said, look, I had a shitty experience, had to get an intervention order. After the 3rd date, he gives me a call and he said, I want to open up. Do you want to tell you? And he said his ex had a 2-year intervention order against him. And I was like, just let me process that. Then I got back to him. I said, look, because he said, if it's too much, I understand, you can walk away. I was like, yeah, it's I'm sorry, but it's just too much for me. Crazy. This, like, nuts. This guy was like, well, little did I know, I'd been overseas between a couple of the dates, and he'd gone completely offline for 10 days. And I was like, oh my God, I hope he's nothing sinister's happening. He could be in hospital. I don't even know how I'd find him then. I found out afterwards that he was actually in jail in that time for breaching the intervention order against his former partner. So from these 2 experiences, I realized very quickly my system, this whole chemistry thing that we look at whether we're attracted to someone. I was like, my system feels safe to connect when it is well aware that the other person is actually not. I mean, they were emotionally unavailable, right, and manipulative, and they have those types of personalities. Okay, so when someone's available and there's a danger of actually real life getting vulnerable, my system goes on red alert, cuts that down straight up. When that is absent, there is some feeling of safety for my system, and my brain logic goes, I feel something for this person.
Welcome to the world. Isn't it insane? Like we're finding the most unavailable men. Totally. I mean, I've got a roster of men that were inappropriate for whatever reason, but perfect because I knew I would never marry them. I knew whatever, even the ones that I would even ask some of the guys if they want to have children with me, even though I knew that they were not right for me. But that, that's crazy. But that's the thing. That's trauma. Trauma, the body's like, this is, you're going to find the exact person where you're at, right?
Yeah.
But you're so aware now. So as you're healing, the real guy's going to start showing up. The real guy. But, you're a survivor, and I also think you're I don't like saying survivor. I like saying you're a warrior. You're a creator. Let's not bring the stories of the past. The stories of the past are in our bodies, right? And they can go out, that we can let them out of our bodies. They can go away. And then it's actually, we have a new person. We become a new person. That's what Joe Dispenza was talking about. You've got to listen to this podcast that we did when it's so great.
Get it up quick, release it. I can't wait.
But he says we shed our personalities when we're being who we truly are. We shed, but we can keep some of the parts that we like, but we get rid of the fear and the anger and the crankiness and the controlling. And maybe for you, the inability to pick an appropriate partner. And my partner's becoming appropriate now. He wasn't, if I look back at it, he's probably wasn't the right guy at that time. Now he's perfect. He's right in line with who I need to be with. But we've both done our work. We were both effed up when we met. Perfect match there. But now we're both growing, but we both committed to growing. So
I love that. I love that you've shined a light on that, because that's been a question that's bounced around in my mind. Probably from that defensive part of my mind too, where I would go, well, if every human has some level of trauma and stuff that they're either aware of or not aware of, and as one, we change so much when we start to work on stuff. And I'm like, oh, how can relationships work then? And you get one human, and just to get your shit sorted enough to function right, and then as soon as you shift yourself, how does that affect a relationship?
Well, if you shift, he's probably going to have to shift too, or you're going to move on. I mean, that's what, give him some time, but that's the thing. But you'll know. And that's the thing, when trauma starts shedding, we start getting more information. That, trauma blocks all the info, like the gut. You have you don't want to feel anything, so you can't feel it. Should I do this? I had no information. I didn't know if this guy was right for me or not. I mean, I did, but I didn't listen to it. I guess that's the other part.
Yeah. That's how long have you been with your partner?
17 years.
Wow.
Longest, yeah. And we have a 14-year-old son. And
amazing.
Yeah. And probably the best father you'll ever meet. The world's best father. I'm sure there's a few others, but this is going to be a hard contest, because he nailed it. And because he had to compensate for me, not the world's worst mother, but a mother that was a workaholic and, felt only safe working. So, the chaos of my son triggers me. So, and he knows it. Like today, I'm like, you can't play that music. Joe Dispenza, I can't do this.
How did it come about, kind of inside that ecosystem of family and relationship, and did you come to a place where the work started to come up, or was it were they involved in that? Was he involved in that? Or did you approach him and go, I am here and need to work on myself? How did that work?
I don't even know, but I don't even, like, this has all happened in the past 3 years too, since I read that book.
Wow.
Like, it's been, whoa. Yeah, we've been 4 years now, but it's been, and I'm pretty intense about doing the work too. Like, I'm pretty, like, I'm going to go do 3 worksheets probably, because I just want to know, why I'm thinking like this. Why am I, anything, but I gave up coffee. I gave up sugar. like those are two addictions. I was addicted to sugar since I was 11 years old. I would steal money from my mother on a daily basis to get Snickers bars and orange soda. I mean, I would drink, I loaded my body. It's amazing I'm not a diabetic, but I just gave it up. Now sugar doesn't taste good anymore, which is weird, but that's violence to our body we don't even know about.
Oh, I need to work on that, Fritzi.
Well, and no shame. But think about it when you're doing it, because what is the sugar doing for you? Or what's your vice? Is it sugar?
Oh, definitely sugar. Right.
So, and definitely I'm going to send you to a podcast called Holistic Life Navigation. And he interviews this woman, Karen Hurd, and she'll tell you about sugar. She'll tell you about caffeine. She'll tell you about dairy, but sugar and caffeine are especially for traumatized people. Are you a coffee addict too?
I do have a bit of coffee. Yeah. Every morning.
Well, for me, it was like a best friend. Literally, I felt like it was a friend. Like it was intense, my coffee relationship.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just my own process, but it's a whole thing. And that was another commitment I made to myself it was like, oh, this is my trauma. This is my trauma informing me that I want this coffee. So who's actually dictating my life? Is it me or is it my trauma? Or which I would say my body saying, no, you need that coffee. So like, it's these little things of overrides these compulsions. It's like, wait a second, that's not me. But my personality used to be a coffee drinker. I'm no longer a coffee drinker. I don't know who I am anymore. And I don't really drink alcohol anymore. All this stuff is shedding away as the trauma's coming out, So it's really looking at, I would say it's looking at, all right, why am I eating this chocolate? Why am I eating this candy bar? What is it doing for me? So it's another level of awareness that we need to put into the program. It's like, okay, wait, because it's usually unconscious. I would eat this huge chocolate, literally this big, and I would just eat it. At Bristol Farms, it's this best chocolate chip cookie in the world. But I would feel so sick after it. I'm like, what did it? I don't even know what it did. But I had no awareness until I stopped. I didn't, I just knew that there's probably a feeling I didn't want to feel or something. And so it's violent though. This is violent stuff we're doing to ourselves on just a little micro violent level, but our body wants it. And like, no shame though. That's what I keep saying. That's why I have the t-shirt when I'm in the middle of those guys saying there's no shame for what your parents did to you. No shame for being abused, no shame for being violated, but also no shame for what you did, because this is in the past. We can't continue to do this. We cannot continue to kill people and destroy people's lives. But if you don't move on, nothing is going to change. And you've got to move on. We've got to forgive ourselves, and we got to move on. And so for all of us, eating sugar or yelling at our mailman or whatever, or the neighbor, or the homeless crisis. All my neighbors are just up in arms at our congressman for letting homeless people. It's like, you're putting more violence in the world. You're not solving it. And all this energy can be freed up for solutions instead of blaming and shaming. But that's what happens when you release a lot of the trauma, is that you free up all this energy. You're like, oh, well, what can I do? Let's do, let's change the world, because we got to stop. We got to get off our butts. The world is about to crumble. It's crumbling. We're on fire in LA, in California. We have no water. Is that a sign? That's a sign. Something, we got to do something, as I drink some water.
Yeah, wow. What changes have you seen in the inside the prisons? Have you seen changes yet? Do you have any heartfelt moments of acknowledgement from these people? How do they receive you?
Okay, well, with the 30 guys that I worked with, big changes there, but they're still in one of the worst prisons in the United States. and it's a max level 4. They're in their cells 23 hours a day. They're treated like crap. They're given these, they're called RVRs. They're citations for doing something bad, literally like walking across the patio. They call it a patio. Walking across, they got an RVR, which means you lose privileges. So, I mean, it's like this kind of weird Oliver Twist world that they're in. But while they were with us for those 7 to 8 hours that they were with us, they felt like they're human. We brought them snacks. We brought them treats. We had them stand in the center of a circle, and each person stood in there, and we said 3 great things that we thought about that person. And they would cry, and one guy said, "My parents never treated me this good, Fritzi." And yeah, but that's how you get to prison.
Yeah.
Is by having people in your life who don't see you. But again, no shame to the parents. And this is the thing, slavery, no shame, but let's fix this thing. Like, we did this, your ancestors did it, but we have to clean up the mess. Mitch McConnell's like, we don't have to do it. It's in the past. I'm like, but there's a mess. We've got a mess in this society. We've got to clean it up. This is us. Look at the mess. It's everywhere. And look at the magnificence. It's everywhere. There's both. We've got it both. So I'm not, I don't want to, but there's a mess. Like prisons are a mess. That's a mess. And so this is what we're doing. So COVID just gave us the answers, because it's like, okay, we got to get to everybody in prison. There's 1,943 prisons in the United States. I don't know how many there are in Australia, but maybe you can tell me one day. I want every prison to get our 12-part video series called Trauma Talks. And so it's so that people know that they're traumatized. They understand what an ACE is. Do you know your ACE score?
I didn't think it was that I think it was 4.
That's high.
Oh, okay.
Guess what?
What?
Having 1 ACE is high, because that can send you into, that's your trauma, and that can make you feel like you're not safe in the world. That can change your entire life. Having 4 ACEs is a lot. Having 4 or more ACEs, you're 7 times more likely to go to prison.
Wow.
Yeah. So just so you know, but people listening to this, and I thought I only had 4 or 5. I ended up having 8, because I counted domestic violence. My mother was violent to my father, not the other way around. And the way the ACEs is, they say it's if your mother was being beaten, but my father was being abused.
My friend, she got 8.
Yeah. 8 is a lot. But I know someone in prison who has 8, and they were destroyed and annihilated. They were annihilated. I was annihilated. I call it annihilated light. Because sometimes my mother would take care of me, and sometimes she would be there for me. But in prison, the levels of annihilation are off the charts. One of the guys we executed recently, because Trump decided he wanted to show off, I had been in contact with him. He had an ACE score of 10, and his father had blown his own brains out on the guy's bed. And then we expect this child to go into the world and behave normally. And instead we give him the death penalty. And yeah. And so that's my mission, is to let everybody know, 1, everybody in prison's traumatized, including the officers. Most of the officers have 4 or more ACEs. And what they're doing to the people in prison, what they're being made to do, and what they do on their own volition, is not only traumatizing them, it's traumatizing their fellow officers and the people in prison. So we're in a violent cycle that my sense is we have to end this violent cycle. We end it in prison, it could reverberate to the rest of the world. My sense is that the people in prison are going to show the world how to heal. That's my
love
goal.
that. I love that, Fritzi. I love that so much. There's so much power in that. I just think of people. I mean, people. If you can look at people that are seen as the worst, or the problems, or the ones with the most unfixable, and you can fix that, then the world goes the people, we can look inward.
Well, that's what we have to do. We have to look inward.
Yeah.
That's all of the work. We all have our work to do, and we can't just wait. It's urgent, actually. Like, we must start doing our work now. As you're listening to this podcast, please start doing your work.
Yeah. And your work is not seeing a psychologist once, by the way.
No, but it's a start. But question every thought, every single thought. You know, oh, I'm ugly. I'm old. Yeah, I'm 58 years old. Well, that's what happens when you get old. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person or that you're inconsequential or that you're not valuable. And that's the thing, you know, we're a youngest society, we're a white society, and all these things just, you know, they marginalize the rest of us. And it's like, well, no, we're all valuable. We're all beautiful. And, you know, we have to stop fixing ourselves instead of just healing ourselves, right?
Yeah.
The fixing, oh, I should have no wrinkles at 58, right? That's what I should have. I should have no wrinkles and no gray hair. I mean, I dye my hair. But I like it that way.
One thing that I found really, really powerful in the film, in the Wisdom of Trauma film, was the moment where on stage, Dr. Gabor was speaking to a lady, and somebody describes her as a monster. And he goes, "Oh, really? What if I told you had beautiful green hair?" And she kind of laughed, and she said, "I would laugh." And he goes, "Why?" And she goes, "This is not true." And then he said, "And what if I called you a monster?" And they looked, you know, it was that moment. And it's these, when we don't talk to other people, we don't give the opportunity for the emotions to tell us. We get an opportunity I was a reframing queen. I am independent. I have all the answers. I'm going to go and rule the world. I don't need anyone. I don't let men or people walk all over me. I don't need a boyfriend. That wasn't the case. It was, I am scared of people. I don't like myself. I am terrified. I am ashamed. I am a bad person. All of those things. But I didn't know that because I never voiced it to see what comes up before you speak to someone. When someone asks you a question, your body tells you the answer. When you just think stuff, when you just cruise through life, you just reframe because you only shine a light on what you want to. Or that's how I felt anyway.
Right. But look at your awareness. It's so incredible. It's so important that your listeners really understand this, that this is to see what we're doing every day, and also, as Joe Dispenza says, how did I do today? Was I kind to people? Was I kind to myself? Really? I think first of all, like, you know, we're so awful to ourselves, and you know, it just makes me weep just to think about how awful we treat ourselves and each other. But it starts with ourselves, because the only way you can treat people badly is if you're treating yourself badly. It's the only way, because you don't have the resources or you don't know how to do it. And so, I mean, today, just love yourself, you know, look at your beautiful body, you know, all of the imperfections that you want to call out, override them and say, geez, look at that. You know, like, I've just grown this new, like, third arm under my arm. You know, when you get old, you get this little wobbly
We call them bat wings or tuck shop arms.
I got the bat wings, and, you know, fantastic. This is the way I'm aging. This is the way my body wants to be. So I'm not going to shame myself for having a bat wing. I'm just going to probably wear a t-shirt once in a while. But I mean, you know, with bat wings, I can fly even higher. So that's the thing, is like, but I'm still working through it too. I'm not like, I'm making jokes about my bat wings, but I'm seriously loving my bat wings and loving my wrinkles sometimes. I'm still working on that. I'm working on it, but the thoughts I can hear the thoughts now. They're there. They're like, okay, examine them. Make sure you examine them. Don't let a thought get away, because it'll resurface somewhere in a bad relationship or in something funky, when those thoughts aren't examined. So we got to really, let's get to the quick, like get on it, get on this love train.
I love it. I could talk to you all day long, but I won't hold you up any longer. I cannot thank you enough for your time. I'm going to let you go do your little worksheets now. And we have a pledge to each other, 15 minutes, at least 15 minutes of yoga. So
yes. Okay.
I'm going to honor that. I'm going to honor
do it
that
too.
and get on it.
I'm going to. Yeah. It has to happen because we're so resistant to it. But let's do it. How much do we have to do? Because I'm leaving for vacation on Friday. So I'll do for 3 days before vacation and then when I get back.
Perfect.
Okay.
And how can my listeners follow you, watch your podcast, and is there anything else that you'd like to pitch?
Absolutely. Okay. So my website is compassionprisonproject.org. And please go, I mentioned this earlier, but please go and see Step Inside the Circle, the whole film that was part of Wisdom of Trauma. There's also another film called On a Yard, and please share that. And then if you feel inspired, please donate, because with our workbook, we're creating a workbook. So we have Trauma Talks, the video series. It's 12 parts. That's not for you yet. It's for the people in prison, but it goes with a workbook. Episode 1 has 40 pages in the workbook. So it's 12 episodes. So this workbook is going to be probably 300 pages. And I want every single person in prison to get this. And if you want to figure out how to get Trauma Talks in Australia, contact me. If you or any of your listeners know somebody who wants to get Trauma Talks, we're doing pilot presentations right now. So the material's free for the prisons that contact us before the pilot season is over. And, but we need those workbooks paid for now. So we would love donations, because those workbooks are going to cost us probably wholesale, probably just, $12 or $15 just off the press. And so, there's 1,943 prisons in the United States. I got to figure out Australia now, but we're going to need all your people in your prisons. So why don't you get an Australia fund? Let's go. We got to get Australia taken care of.
Let's look at that. I want to see who I know a handful of people who work in prison, so I might do a little bit of rummaging around, see if we can get you some contacts. I'd love to see that roll out in Australia.
Absolutely. And we have episode 1 ready to go, and it's gorgeous. There's the Prison Yoga Project is donated their modalities. The Nick Ortner of the Tapping Solution. We have somatic healing. There's somatics information. So, and we have interviews with all the top trauma experts in the world, Bessel, Kolk, all the people I mentioned earlier. So I know, and it's going into prison. This information is going to people in prison. They're going to learn about their trauma, learn about ACEs, learn about somatics, learn about healing. I mean, I think we could change the world with this. This is, one of the avenues of world change. So let's get on the boat and let's paddle hard, but do our own work in the meantime. Kiss your wife, kiss your husband, tell your boyfriend they mean so much to you. Don't hold back your love, because we don't know what tomorrow will bring. And wouldn't that be a tragedy if we left all that love without telling people how we felt about them?
Fritzi, you're amazing. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Tiffany. You're amazing too. You're a warrior, and I want you to find the love of your life. And I know he's out there. He's doing his work now too. So that's why it's going to take a couple more weeks for you to meet.
Thank you.